If you're not splurging on large plants, you're doing plant parenting all wrong. And in this video, I'm going to give you 5 easy large statement plants that you can have in your home, take care of, and be successful with. Hi, my name is Britt, also known as Botanically Bee, and on this channel we talk about all things plants, home, and lifestyle. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any other videos. So I would suggest large plants over small ones any day. Let's talk about the pros and cons of both. Small plants, though they usually are cheaper depending on what kind, they save space because they don't take up a lot, and it's probably more rewarding because you get to see them grow from something small to something large. Yeah, those sound like pretty great pros, but some of the cons are they're small, and sometimes we want large plants that are mature and beautiful and what we want them to grow up to be already done. They require more care, in my opinion, because they tend to dry up faster because they don't have a lot of substrate, whatever they're in, and they typically have a smaller root system, and I feel that makes them more sensitive and more prone to a lot of things, i.e. death, because it's not as established, right? Now, some of the pros and cons of having large plants, well, some of the pros, they're already big and beautiful and maybe mature, how we like to see them, how we aspire to have our plants typically if we have them small. And typically when we buy them that size, it takes years for them to get that way. So we're able to buy them just as they are and not have to wait all of those years for those kind of results. And they're low maintenance because they are larger. They typically take a longer time for whatever substrate they're in to dry out, so they don't require so much of our attention like the smaller plants that I mentioned. Now, some of the cons of larger plants are they typically are more expensive because all that time and effort and care to be put into them, yeah, you're gonna be paying for that. They do take up a lot more space, which I know could be a pro or a con. And if they're already that size, sometimes we have to figure out where are we going to put these plants as they grow bigger. So I get it. There's pros and cons to both small and large plants. But for me, I love large statement plants. I think they make a great addition to the home. I really think they bring that lush jungle vibe that most of us aspire to have. And to me, it's easy to just get a large plant, put it in a space, and boom, we have our urban jungle. So as I mentioned, I have a lot of large statement plants in my home, and here are my top 5 that I feel that really any plant parent could take care of, whether you're a beginner or experienced, and I think you should consider adding them to your home. So the first one is the Monera deliciosa. Now I have 2 in my home. One is the regular green form. His name is Sully. And then I have Melon over here, who you guys sometimes probably see in my videos, and she is a Monera Thai constellation. They're both really mature and are huge. And Monstera as a plant is already an easy category of plants anyway. But when they're bigger, though I am struggling to figure out what's going to happen as they continue to grow, because eventually they might outgrow the space. I do love them because it doesn't take a lot of effort or plants to fill the space because they do enough on their own. Now, general Monstera care tips: I let the soil dry out in between waterings. They are both sitting in southeast facing windows, so they do like a lot of light and can tolerate it. I don't really do anything extra in terms of humidity, and they seem to love it. But the main thing with Monsteras is giving them a nice chunky substrate to thrive in, because they do like to have well-draining soil. They do like to dry out. They do like to be a little root bound, I found in my experience. They just like to be nice and tight and snug in their pots, and that's it. They can be very rewarding, and honestly, you don't have to overcomplicate them. So that's my first choice, the Monera deliciosa in any variety. The next one is the Fernleaf Cactus. Now, I would probably say I've not really seen anyone else with one as big as mine, but I have one, and her name is Fern, and she is stunning, she's beautiful, and has been one of the easiest plants I've ever had in my entire plant parenthood journey, especially with her being so big, because I know a lot of plants when they're larger sometimes are intimidating, but without me ever having one before her and not knowing or having experience with these types of plants, she's been extremely easy. Now, Fern sits in my south facing window and she loves it. She thrives in there. And because she's an epiphytic cactus, she does like to dry out a little bit. And by being epiphytic, that just means that in the wild, she would be attaching herself to a tree or something and growing up it with her aerial roots. She's the cousin to like an orchid or an air plant. They're also epiphytes. But she just tells me when she's thirsty, or typically I guesstimate, and that is by seeing if her leaves look a little shriveled, which typically means that she's probably super dry, but that's fine because she bounces back. And that's pretty much all I do with her. I just give her water when she tells me that she's thirsty, or typically once every week and a half. And because her pot is so big, I probably could go longer with any of my plants. I could probably go longer, but she's been doing well with just me watering her every week and a half and has been thriving. So a fernleaf cactus, if you thought about getting one for yourself, let them dry out a little bit in between waterings and give them a lot of light, and they'll be amazing for you. The third large type of statement plant that I would recommend is the money tree. Now, we all know about money trees. We've seen them in different sizes, and I've actually never owned one up until this year, several months ago, when I saw it in Lowe's and I was like, wow, like this one is fairly large for me seeing it in a big box store. I must have it. It's calling my name. And when I brought it in my home, I had some doubts as to whether or not it would grow because I've never had one. I mean, I've given people advice on them from what I have seen and heard from others, but I've never actually grew one. But to my surprise, it's been one of the easiest plants ever, and they grow super fast. It is almost doubled in size since I've had it, and it's been several months. I don't even put it in a window, which is the great thing. It is farther away from a window and it still does very well. I do let the soil dry out a little bit in between waterings because that trunk that we usually see is braided. That actually holds a lot of water. So they don't need as much water as we think that they do, but whenever I see the substrate dry out, I just top it off with some water. I don't give it any additional humidity or a ton of light, and it thrives. So I would definitely recommend that as a large statement plant, and because it grows fairly fast too. Fourth large statement plant that I would recommend is an Antherium miranda. I know, Antherium, I get it, but I've always struggled with Antheriums, and this is one that has been super easy to care for. And they get huge. I mean, I'll put a picture here of what a mature size miranda looks like. They're insane. Mine is a pretty decent size. I'm happy with the size. I know it could and will get bigger at some point, but I like the size that it's at. And I've had it for almost 3 years and it's grown a lot. And I just have it in a southwest facing window in my bedroom, and it has been absolutely thriving. The leaves are super rewarding because they come out and they are this beautiful bright red, and then they open up and they'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they'll start maturing and turning green. And it's a really beautiful and rewarding sight to see. I have it in my chunky soil mix and it has been thriving ever since. In fact, I am very tempted to repot it soon because I have not repotted it since I got it 3 years ago. And though it's been thriving, I'm just interested to see what the roots look like, you know? But as an Antherium, I would say it's one of the more easier ones. I think most of the Antheriums with the waxy or glossier leaves are easier than the ones with the velvety leaves. But this one is beautiful with the way it has grown and the way that it has thrived in my home. So give them lots of light, give them a nice chunky soil, and they'll do fine. And the fifth plant on my list of recommendations for large statement plants are the Drina. Now, Drinas come in so many varieties, and most times we see them small, we see them medium, and we can sometimes see them as large trees. And I would always buy the large tree if I had an opportunity. I actually got one off of Facebook Marketplace for $45 from this family that was moving and could not take it with them. And they said they've had it for over 10 years. Do you know how much a plant would be if the grower was growing it for over 10 years and was trying to sell it? Hundreds of dollars, hundreds, sometimes thousands, depending on the size and the variety of plant that it is. So I knew that I had to grab this plant, and I named it Lula B after my grandmother because it kind of gives matriarch vibes in my home. Like, it's the oldest and the wisest of them all, you know? I forget the variety of Drina. I'll put it here on the screen that Lula B is, but It has been amazing to have this beautiful Dracaena in my home, truly. It has grown a little bit and I can see its growth because the new growth looks a little bit different than the older growth that it's had. But I love that it's growing under my care. Dracaenas are some of the easiest plants to care for. They are one of my top choices for beginners. And I have a few different types of Dracaenas in my home, but all I do is water it and let the soil dry out. I give it enough light. So before, it was in an area that wasn't near a window, but it was getting some of the sun that would come through the window in the morning. Now I have given it a grow light because I really want it to take off and just grow to the ceiling. But it's already over 6 feet tall and I am in love, okay? It has just been a joy to see it grow, to see it thrive in my home, and super easy. So let me know, do you have any of these plants in your home? What are some other large statement plants that you love or would recommend that are easy for anyone to care for? Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future ones. And I'll see you in the next video.